What was your highest rank?
PFC.
And what were some of the general locations you served?
France. At the beginning, France. Through the liberation of Paris. Then. And moving on through that area, went on and was wounded in southern France, and
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
drafted.
Do you remember the date
Which one?
that you were drafted?
It would be in the beginning of 1944.
Okay. Can you tell me about your first days in the service? About your training?
Well, I went right into basic training, and immediately, so I went in the beginning, 1944, and I was in combat before the year was up.
Okay.
I went immediately right into.
Right. Where did you go for training?
In Macon, Georgia, Camp Wheeler.
Okay. Do you remember any of your instructors?
No. Not. I remember them and visually, but.
Okay. Can you tell me about some of your training?
Well, just normal infantry basic training.
Okay.
Stat, please, this is Maureen.
Okay. After boot camp, where did you go?
I was assigned as a replacement into what would have been the Pennsylvania National Guard.
Oh, okay.
And
what were some of your first impressions when you arrived there?
Nikki to stat, please. This is
which impressions you're looking for
Of your first assignment.
Well, my first assignment, I went from basic training, as I said, and went into the Pennsylvania National Guard, and that would have been the 29th Division, 20 bucket of blood wasn't we called it. It was the Pennsylvania National Guard.
Okay. And
I find it difficult just to pick out these names and recall them.
oh, you're doing okay. So then, what were some of the daily routines that you had to do in the Guard?
Well, as I said, I went in as an infantry replacement, so you just went in and do whatever a soldier would do.
Okay. And then you went to France after that.
Yes,
Okay.
I went immediately to France. As a matter of fact, I was in. Let's see. I don't remember exactly, but I went into the service, into the basic training, from basic training process through the assignment to the Pennsylvania National Guard, which was the 29th Infantry Division,
Okay.
in terms of military strength. And what was that? What was the question now?
After you were assigned that, you went right into France. So
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, indeed, yes. As I said, I was a replacement, and they put you in, and that was it.
Okay. What were some of your first impressions in France?
Um, well, there will be many first impressions. It depends upon which direction you're thinking. It was just a matter of a personal adjustment to being in the army in a new situation.
Right. Okay. Do you remember what part of France you arrived in?
Let's see. No, because I shipped over me, we landed in some part of the British Empire, and then we processed through the through the regular situation of taking recruits and train them and locate them.
Right. Okay. When you arrived in France, what were some of the daily things that you would have to do? Like wake up at 5 a.m. and then what would you do throughout the day?
Well, let's see. You were recruited in an already organized army installation. And what was your question about it?
What would a daily activity be like? What would you do throughout the day?
Well, mostly you were preparing to come into combat in what the infantry would be doing, because you were coming in as a replacement, and it wasn't going to be very long before somebody was there replacing you.
Right. Did you see combat?
Well, I remember when I was assigned into the 29th Division, I remember saying to one of the guys that I was with, "What's this twing?" And the guy says, "You dope." He said, "Those are bullets. What do you think it is?" So it was quick. I was quick from a civilian to a basic training to being shot at. They weren't polite.
No. I can't imagine they were. Were there casualties in your unit?
Oh, well, when you are in an infantry division in a progressing war, there are many, many casualties.
Okay. So you were telling me that you were involved in the Hurricane Forest?
Yes, that was an area of all the countries were bunched together there, and the Hurricane Forest was a big, tremendous forest area, and we were, when you mentioned, I said I was being involved. We were pushing back because we were driving the Germans back into the fatherland, and that's where the difficulty began, of course, because they were masters of the situation at that time when we were starting to push them back, and we were just beginning to see. I had come in the battle of at the hedgerows, and that was where we went out to that into driving into the open plains, and then on up and into the area where we entered the Hurtgen Forest area.
Okay.
I don't know. It's difficult to sit here and describe exactly how you were, where, when.
Right. And so after the Hurricane Forest, where did you progress to?
After that, I progressed to recuperating.
That's where you were injured there.
I was hit in the Hurtgen Forest. Yeah.
Where were you shot?
My right shoulder and my right hand and my right lower back.
Okay. Do you mind telling us about the day that you were shot? What was going on that day?
Well, it was I was hit on the 2nd of November. My job was, as I said, was in the infantry. I was the runner of the company commander, and I never left his side. I was with him, I'll right then and there and go there and do that and so on. And I forgot what the question was.
What was going on that day, the day that you got shot?
Oh, as I mentioned earlier, we were starting to push the Germans back. We'd liberated Paris, and now we were doing the dirty work of pushing them back.
Okay.
Then I'm sorry, but I keep switching from one thing to another. So that particular day, we had been given orders to attack. Later on, I found out, reading what had happened, we had been told to attack, and then they changed the orders. They had things mixed up, and so we didn't go in that day. We went in the next day.
Okay.
So these are the things that would happen. You wouldn't know why, and so on. And now, what were you asking? You were asking about impression of the.
No, we were talking about the day that you were shot. So.
Oh yeah. Well, we were advancing we were going right through the forest, right through the woods, and you hear stories about how this, that, and something else. But when you were plodding along through the forest and the lands, there would be You asked about casualties, yes. And what was lying around, there would be dead Germans and dead Americans, and it was a mess. It's hard to put this into a nice continuing story because you're shifting from and then you'll ask me something and my mind will be distracted to remembering something happened. So you don't always perhaps make as clear a picture of what happened as what you thought did.
Right. So let's back up for a little bit. You said you were involved in the liberation of Paris?
Yes. That was an interesting thing. That was, we marched down the Champs-Élysées. The pictures in Life magazine, what showed, well, it was just, I don't know how many of us, all the way across, going right down through. And all the big shots were there, all the generals because this was a great festival for the French to regain control of the situation in Paris. And the big commander names were there. And so that was and then we just went back to our units and went back on into the battle.
Right. So can you tell me about the process of liberating Paris?
Well, we had been coming along. It was going to be the beginning of the pressure against the German area. So you just continued battle after battle in different areas, and did whatever you could wherever you could, and that was a sort of an unmasked area of combat or progression, and then in various other parts of along the area, the whole front was changing, and of course the individual soldier was doing his best he could for that particular day for whatever was happening.
Right.
And then when you think back, it's difficult to recall specifically sometimes what happened, and then little things occur. I was trying to think of a specific example. I remember we had pushed through that area fast, and there was even black bread that the Germans had. There was still some of it still left because we were pushing it through, and it's queer. Some little thing like remembering black bread in the middle of being killed. So when you relate what you try to remember, you wonder, So when I took this video again. I mean, when I should look at it, I mean, you probably remember parts of it, I don't know if this helps, if this gives you any idea of anything,
Oh no, you're doing great.
Yeah.
So then after you were injured,
Yes.
where were you sent?
Well, let's see. Oh, I made my first flight. I went from Paris to London, and then on into hospitalization.
Right. How long were you in the hospital for?
Oh, several months, because I had my hand was gone. My shoulder was gone. I couldn't bear a rifle. My hip, like the doctor saying, well, another quarter of an inch and you wouldn't have been bothering me.
Right.
I mean, some little minor thing like that you can think about. Here he is. You're in there. You're hitting at the bottom of your spine and so on and so forth. And you recall a comical remark made, by a doctor. But it's, little things like that. But that's the reality of things.
Right. So then, did you discharge from the hospital?
When? What?
Did you discharge from the hospital, or did you go back to battle after you were...
Oh, no, I didn't go back to battle. I wasn't worth much. What are you going to do with a guy that can't walk, that can't carry anything, that can't shoot? So I worked what they call the machines record unit.
Okay.
I was in there to with machines record that was keeping track of the people, of recruit, what forces were, who was still wounded, who was going where, what. A clerical job.
Okay.
What else could I do?
So can you tell me about that? What would you do from the day to day?
Then, well, I remember there was one guy that was in charge of processing these records. You had to make the famed morning reports. How many, who's there and who isn't, and so on and so forth. And so each day you had people were coming through, being wounded and shifting out, and so on and so forth. And you had to keep track of that. And you asked me what I did. Well, I wasn't never any good at staying awake, and there was a sergeant there, and he said, "I'd rather have you," he said, "working consciously," he said, "than these guys coming in just." So he took me in and gave me some jobs to do. That had to be done properly, and then I would go and I would work, and then I'd fall asleep. And he would say, "Look, I prefer," he said, "to have what you're doing and doing right than," he said, "somebody that's put on a show of." Now, little things like this that I remember, I had never thought of that, And in this interviewing situation that you're doing, you're probably being closer to what's really happening than lots of the things I did what he said, and then worked as much as I could. And when I was so tired, he'd say, "Go to bed." He said, "I'd rather do what you've done right," he says, and how I don't remember this for a long time.
Okay. And then after that, did you discharge after working in the records department?
Well, no, I wasn't discharged. Again, it's a fluid situation. Here you got to beat up a guy. He's not worth much anything, except we can fit him into some place where, like I said, in the machines, record units or whatever, and so you had to eat, and so we kept in through that. So you had a sort of an amorphous period of time that you were in, and then theoretically you should get stronger as you go along, and then what are they going to do with you? You can't go back and be a combat infantryman. What can you do? You can't carry a load. You can't walk, and so they find something to do with you.
So after the machine records unit,
Yes.
Where did you go?
Oh, that is hard to, because you just went along from one thing to another, and they made me a clerk somewhere, and I was sort of a non-entity. What are you going to do with a guy? And you went through whatever you did what went, and then for a while I ended up I was working for a chaplain, and there again, as I say, what are you going to do with somebody? Well, they thought so. I went there, and I would be sent out by the priest, maybe to talk somebody that had been wounded, and you never knew what you were going to do,
Right.
but they would find you to do something with.
Okay. And were you, when you were in the records department and with the chaplain, were you in England or France?
Oh, this would have been more. This would have been. Let's see. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Because stuff moved and different. You see, you didn't have clear delineations lots of times.
Okay.
You were part of whatever it was, and how did it get to be there?
Yeah. So after you worked with the chaplain, what did you do?
I forgot. I don't know. Segments of what you did you can recall, and other times stuff just blurs into, and you have a difficult time to establish here and here and here. And
That's okay. Do you remember what year you discharged?
Yeah, 1945.
Okay.
In Fort Devens, Massachusetts, 10 miles from my house.
That must have been nice.
Well, by this time, now it wasn't in 1945, your things. And when I got home there, I ended up at Fort Devens, which is right near where I lived, and it seems that there was a guy that he was a stationary engineer, took care of at Fort Devens there. he was helping out with the heating and so on, that kind of. So he found out I was there because where he was going home every night and driving back to the Fort Devens, he found out I was there. So I don't know if this is supposing to be however this goes in, but this is what happened. He said, "Look, I'll go home every night." And he says, "All you do," he says, "you get in there," and they said, "You sit in the back." And he says, "And you sit up straight, because he said, when I go every day, I got to go in and out, in onto the fort, So he said, he said, "I'll just you doing it. You just sit there." And then he said, when you drive up close where it look like they're going to look for anything, you just salute quick. He says they'll salute right back. He says they'll salute right back, and you go home. So in the morning, when you come, same way. He said, when you go in to go back from being at home in your house, you go back that morning back to where you're supposed to be, and you do the same thing. You sit up straight, you salute. They said, "Here you are." He said, "You're a wounded, beat up little old guy." He says, "And everybody's letting you through the." Yeah. So I mean, there were some humorous situations like that. So what I'm telling you is I didn't necessarily win the war, but
So you did that for a while?
Did what?
Saluting.
Oh yeah, well that was just while that was just a few days. Okay. Because I was being processed back through. I was being processed home. Okay. So I was down near home then, so that I could go back and forth. But and when you think about things that are funny, you say that you don't know, and I remember during that time when I would go back with him, and they'd go to my house, and I remember stopping and scrubbing my mother's toilet seat. Because you'd been through all of this mess, and everybody has all of this diseases and everything else, and here I am scrubbing my mother's toilet seat that I grew up in. I mean, now little things like that. I don't know if this is what you're trying to find out or whatnot, but anyway, that's a bit of a humorous thing.
Yeah. Did you write letters to your family while you were overseas? Yes.
And that was always a mixed-up kind of thing. I had one situation. One day, we had a lull in the battle, and I had a mail call. And so and you look at things, they had a whole bunch of mail. And wasn't it so nice that so-and-so was fine and recuperating, and this recuperating from what and when and how, what, anything like that. But anyway, one day in the middle of combat, we stopped. We weren't fighting, we were waiting, and they brought in this mail call, and I went through I said, "Darn, GIs can't get anything right," and sure enough, and then I looked at the thing, and I looked at it, and I looked back again, and I said, "That's my handwriting. What are they giving it back to me for?" And looking very carefully, I see the handwriting. I realize it is my handwriting. And stamped right across it is this return thing from my brother. Big letters, MIA. I'm sitting there in combat position, and I'm reading. You know what MIA is?
Yeah.
So, Missing in Action.
Yep.
And so anyway, well, I'm 92, and you wonder how you ever got there. My brother is 2 years younger than I am. And you talk about what happens to people at home. Here, there was my brother and me. And my mother got an official letter from the government that my brother was a prisoner of war. Within a few days later, she got another letter from a chaplain that I was in the hospital wounded. So these were some of the things that happened to the people surrounding the battles. Well, anyways, I started to say, I'm 92, and he's all right now. He recovered from all of the problems that he had. And so we thank God that we made it.
Right.
So I don't know if this, if you're gaining anything that you'd like to gain.
Oh, absolutely.
It may be a little different from what you got, but I'm telling you what I saw, you know.
Yeah, that's what we're after.
Yeah.
How was the food while you were over there?
Pretty good, because they had. I remember one day. I mentioned we were in sort of amorphous positions. Sometimes you didn't know what, and you were signed from this place to that place, and no reason or whatnot. But one night, and how we got there, I don't know. But what was, we were in the battle. We were in battle fatigue, you know, and so on, and they put us in this fancy nightclub place in one of the good cities, and served us in this big fancy place K rations. I mean, these are little things that are, if you have some humor with it, with things. Well, anyway, that's just a little passing thing. I probably haven't thought of eating K rations in a fancy nightclub. Yeah. Oh, they were different.
Did you always have enough supplies?
Well, they tell you if you get wounded, you got to drink a lot of water, and of course there wasn't ever any water to drink in the problem. And then you take the pills, and you didn't have the pills, and it was so some you laugh a little bit because it's really humorous, except that you didn't take the pills, maybe you're going to die, but you know.
Right. Did you ever feel pressure or stress while you were over there?
I sure did.
How did you handle it?
Well, now what kind of pressure do you mean?
Of being in the battle.
Well, you kept going. I mean, what do you? I remember once, the day I was wounded. Well, this was bad. I told you I had been the company. We were infantry company, and I was the company commander's errand boy.
Yeah.
Stay right with him. So we were pushing through this is the day of you asked about the wounding day, we had pushed on through, again, as I mentioned, we was going from a lower, let's say you had Paris, and we'd gotten Paris liberated, and then we kept on pushing and so on. And then the whole countries began to get together, and then he began to really push the Germans back. And they were fierce. We were back in the fatherland there. So anyway, and I get distracted. What I was going to tell you, I can get my thoughts back together again. I don't know if it's lost again. I was going to make a point, but I lost it.
Oh, that's okay. It'll come to you. So, as the commander's errand boy, what was your...
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what. So we had pushed from the after we'd taken care of Paris and so on, and now we're pushing them back. And now you're in Belgium and all these, and we're pushing the Germans back, and so this day we had a pretty good push, and we stopped. We went right out near Cologne, Germany, southern Germany, and I lost the train of thought again. Let's see, I'll be there in a minute. We now had pushed them back, and we had made a good surge, and it was just noontime, and we had gone back, and there was a big autobahn, big highway and so on. So we pushed on up to there. Well, by this time, we're pushing back into Germany, and they're rising. They were looking down on us. So, you asked about being the company commander. I was right with it, because these were the officers. So all the officers were put together. And I was right with them. Right at the beginning, they were right there, what we're going to do next. And that wasn't a good day, because the stuff was falling all around. I remember some guys, his face is just smeared with blood, smashed down. So, and then it began to break up. So the individuals, I went back with 2 or 3, getting somebody back, but then I had to return and stay with the captain where I had to be, and it was a mess up, but so. And then it blurs away, and you don't remember. You don't go back to exactly what was there. So this is a rambling account of a lot of things, but you see, this is not a made-up story. This is what was happening. This is why you can't remember what you thought you did.
Yeah.
So I've done the best I can to relate how it actually was.
Oh, you're doing well. So as his right-hand man, what would you usually have to do?
Run out and tell somebody go this way, that way, or assign. I never had to make. I never had to go on patrol.
Okay.
Because I was too valuable to knowing what was going on to just take any poor guy and shove him out and get shot, But so I don't know. So anyway,
Okay. Did you ever see any USO shows?
oh, you might fall in on them, yeah. A U.S. show like that would have been put together and put somewhere where there'd been troops.
Right.
Whereas I would have been wandering around in what was happening there, and you would, and if you did see a show, you would have been in at the particular time where there was a group that would merit their accumulating in one place again.
Okay. So what did you do in your leisure time?
Some of the time after I was wounded and kicking around, I mentioned before, you were sort of not with it. You know, you were just here, there, and around. And you asked me what I did. I used to, for a while, you were just there, and I if you could. You go in. You might be able to pick up a concert somewhere.
Okay.
Get some cultural background and so on. But
Play any cards?
I never was a good card player. I never could remember it was my turn. Never remember what a card was. You know.
Do you recall any humorous events?
Yes. One day in combat, back in the Hurtgen forest, these were stately trees. You know, all, in Europe, the trees are all lined up and so on. So we were there, and we were under artillery all the time. That would come in so many in a few minutes and so on. So one day we were there, and we had one guy. He was a humorous sort of guy. He was always there. Well, he had what do you call it when you have a bottle of water on your side? Yeah, or a flask or whatever. And in the middle of it, a bullet went through this canteen, and all the water spilled out. He was furious. He was so mad. He was going to take on the whole German army. I mean, you asked me, I do remember. He was, and that's during the same time that we were working together. Somebody had a pair of scissors. Well, they stopped. The fighting stopped a little bit. We stopped and got a haircut. Some guy, and we never could find the scissors after. I remember, if they're still looking, I wonder if that place over in Germany is a place where there is the scissors. Because but you know, you say about humorous things, you know, where things like that would happen. And then if you're looking for a sidelight, again, during this period of time, you'll notice I went from the battle into the machine record and all kinds of things. I finally got in one area where I was, how I got there and I got that relative freedom and not being checked on why I wasn't somewhere. I met a French girl, and she was a nice girl, and so her husband, her fiance was there too. So I met both of them, and he told me that they had one. This is how much equipment they had, if they had supplies enough to have. he said they had one toothbrush for 6 GIs. He said the French army. Well, anyway, in talking with them, I got to know him real well because and we were near Paris. How come I was say? Don't explain to me how I was there. I don't know. I was there. Anyway, there was an Air Force base nearby, or Air Force group anyway. Well, I went over there, and this girl that I was talking about and her fiancé, they wanted to be married, but they had nothing. They didn't have a thing. I went over to off limits and so on, but I went. And I got to talk to the Air Force supply guy. And they had that beautiful white parachute stuff they had.
Yeah.
It was beautiful white parachute. Well, he gave me enough of that stuff. So the little infantryman man runs over to the Air Force and gets this stuff, and I brought it back, and she was able, and she made the most beautiful wedding dress you ever could have thought out of that
Parachute. Wow.
out of that parish. So there's a positive aspect. Yes, what the impression were of the French and whatnot. And so, well, this is just one of. I've tried as we talked to get an idea of what it might seem like, or why it would seem like that to people. So there they are, one place where this couple had a big wedding, and
Wow, that's very nice. Did you keep a journal?
no, I don't need time. Well, I kept a few scars.
Where were you when your service ended?
We had a point system. How long you had been there and whatever the heck it was. And you want to know where I was? I was somewhere. How it worked out, I don't remember. You had so many points for this and so many points. Well, I was somewhere where the points were running out, and I was able to get over to the guy that I was telling him was bringing me home. Yeah. So I was in the army system, and I was being what do you call it?
Discharged.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good word.
How was your homecoming?
Well, my homecoming was in spurts. When I was coming home with the guy that lives next door, there was the stationary engineer at the military base that I was going to be transferred to.
Right.
And so when I got home, I was happy, of course, because I remember we got one of them. Somebody said to me, to my future wife, he said to me, where did you? I said, as fast as I could. I was unsincere.
What did you do in the days and weeks following your homecoming?
When I got home, I wanted to be a teacher. I had done some work, and I got some. Well, I didn't tell you this, but I had been in a special kind of a thing for a while, and where we could utilize some of the arrangements we had, and they gave, and I got some military credits, and so I got some out of it. So when I went home, to answer your question, I was trying to find where my records were going to be enough that they were going to give me military so they were able to work up a degree so that I could get a job with all the stuff I had done there and so on. So I was keeping as much as I could, trying to find a job. And so my fiance had one of the best jobs in Massachusetts, and I couldn't find a job anywhere. You know, I mean, so what I did was I tried to do as much as possible to strengthen myself. I didn't know what response I was going to have to go. I wanted to be a shop teacher, and here you got a smashed up hand, and so I went back. I went into. I made friends with somebody in a trade school, and so I could reuse my hands, and so I did as much as I could, and so that's what I did. I prepared for. I hope to get a job, and ultimately I did.
So you eventually became a shop teacher?
I did.
Okay.
And I went. That was some of the best jobs, best years I had for a while, and then I didn't stay teaching very long, and then I went in the life insurance business, and from there I went to the stock exchange, and I retired from the stock exchange in charge of the, not money, but in charge of, because I had a background teaching, in charge of the examinations that brokers have to take to sell, to be a broker.
Oh, okay.
So I had all kinds of things, but so am I answering anything that's helpful to you?
Yes, you are. Did you use the GI Bill?
I sure did. Yeah. I got my degree, and I got my master's degree.
Was it in education?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had pretty much. They patched it up.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you know how it is. Well, you know very well what it's like when you try to get. If you take a course here, it doesn't fit over there. Well, they worked it around, so I did get. I got that.
Okay.
So I got. I ended up with a job, and I had a match. I have a degree from NYU, and then I had another one back in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, where I'd done a lot more refinement. So anyway, one day I took all these degrees and put them together. I took a look and took all the letters, and you know what it spells? Mud.
Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Well, an interesting question. The answer, rather may be astounding, is pretty much no, because I came in as a replacement. Now, what happens when you have a war and so on and so on? The different states, like my brother was with the Massachusetts National Guard, 26th Division. I was as a replacement, and they just needed somebody, and I entered into the Pennsylvania National Guard, the 29th Division. Now, how did I get into? You said something. How did I get off onto that?
Did you make?
Make any friends? Well, yeah. I didn't come into the usual breakdown of pre-military guys. So I had never gone through all of this where you went through your early days with friends that you knew all the time and you saw them get killed. I didn't do that. I ended up with the one lone loose leaf guy left over, you know.
How did your military experience influence your thinking?
How did it influence my thinking?
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. Well, you learn about life for sure, and it was a great experience. It's a great experience to have had.
Okay. Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I forgot for one reason. VFW I did. I've forgotten Veterans Foreign Wars, I guess. For some reason, I got one. I wanted one over the other. I did that, but I was never much of a military guy. You know, and parades and stuff didn't ever appeal to me, and I just didn't. So the answer, did I enjoy it? The answer is yes. I joined one, and that's all.
Okay. Did you ever attend any reunions?
Well, not much. Again, I didn't associate very much and so on. But and then, for example, in my, I was a part of, the different battles. I was part of the Battle of the Bulge. And by that, I was wounded on the 2nd of November. The Battle of the Bulge, and that terrible thing was right at Christmas. I was back in clean sheets then. Reunions. My people, my whole bunch of. My group was just obliterated. Because that was a terrible thing. Yeah. That was all that rain and snow and hail and... So you didn't... Sometimes the people that you really would have wanted to be reunionists weren't there to be, you know?
Right. How did your service and experience affect your life?
Well, I was very grateful that I ever got home. And I tried to gain, which I have not been very successful in, I tried to gain a little bit of appreciation and humility that God has given me a chance to come through all that I have done. So, and I found out that God still rules the world in spite of what they say.